Hi, my name's Ben Grabham, and over the next few months, ADB and I are going to bring you a bunch of off-road riding tips and some off-road setup tricks for your bike. And today we're going to focus on trail riding. Often on trail rides, I see riders struggling just because their bike setup is off. Today we're going to show you some basic tips for setting up your bike. First up, we'll start with tyres. They're super important when you're trail riding. My biggest tip is to get a rough idea on the terrain where you're going to ride. We've got a fair mixed terrain we're trail riding on today, so we've gone for the Dunlop 81s. They're just a good general overall tyre that works in most conditions, and they're a little bit stronger than your average motocross tyre, which helps for punches and stuff like that. Also on the inside that you can't see, we've gone for some ultra heavy duty tubes. If you're confident to fit mooses or get them fitted, that's the next step up. But yeah, a good tyre that you're comfortable with, that's reliable, is gonna give you a lot more enjoyment on the trails. When you're choosing a tyre, there's a few basic tips I go by. Like, you can go for a soft terrain tyre, which generally does work in all conditions, but it's going to wear out a lot faster. So if you're looking for the ultimate grip and don't care how many tyres you burn through, go for one of them. Otherwise, when we're trail riding like I am today, I've gone for the intermediate style pattern. They work a lot better just over everything, and the wearing is reasonable, quite good there, better than your soft terrain. Or if you're riding a lot of hard pack or clay areas and that, I'd recommend going to your hard terrain tyre. They're going to wear a lot longer too. They're designed for the hard pack, and if you're tight on money, then I'd suggest probably going hard pack terrain tyre all day long. You'll just sacrifice a bit of grip if it gets a bit muddy or a bit sandy. Another trick I like to do when I'm choosing my tyres is, ultimately for me, I like front end grip. I can get away with the back bend a little bit slippery, so on the front I'll go to the soft terrain front compound, so then I get really good grip, and then go towards your medium to hard terrain on the rear. And I see that a lot on trail rides too, and it makes a lot of sense to me. The back's okay to be sliding around a little bit, but you don't really want to be losing the front and tweaking a knee or something. Another thing to be mindful of is tyre pressures. It's a very important thing and can change your day, whether it's punches or just general feeling. So on soft terrain, I'm always someone who likes maximum grip, so I'll sneak down around the 12 PSI range, front and rear. In stony stuff like this, where there's more chances of a punch, I'll run up around 14, just to try and stop punches, and the feeling's still not too bad. But then when you get the extreme areas like my homeland in Bathurst and Sunny Corner, where there's sharp rocks and that, you have to start going up around the 16 PSI if you're running tubes, just so you don't get a puncher and ruin your day. The next setup tip I'm going to focus on is handlebar and lever position. This one, there's no set position because obviously everyone's different sizes and shapes, but I've got a few general rules I run by. This WR450 has 6 options with handlebar positions. For me, I'm a medium-sized guy, so at the moment I run the back forward position. Shorter guys can run back. Taller guys, I recommend moving it to say forward. I see a lot of guys out there with some crazy positions, but I like to keep it in the range of what a lot of these brands come out with. They're not silly with all their testing and that, so there's a lot of different range of heights of handlebars to work with as well. So if you're a taller guy, go shopping on the market and feel some in some of the shops. There are a lot of taller brands out there and some low ones. So I'm middle of range, so that's where I generally like to keep it. Even handlebar position, when you're rolling forwards and back, I believe there's a bit of a window. Doesn't matter how big you are, and at the moment I run it nice and neutral on a similar angle to what the fork is. It's sort of a good guideline to go on all bikes. You can run forward from there, realistically like an inch, and the same back, just depending on your heights. Obviously the taller guys are going to want to run them forward a bit, give them a bit more room, open up the cockpit, and then the smaller guys are going to bring them back closer to them just to close everything up and feel comfortable. Similar thing with levers. There's a lot of different theories and that going around, but I keep it pretty neutral. Like, you can run them reasonably flat if you like stretching out your forearms and that quite a bit when you ride, or you can run them down even a bit further if you're quite a tall guy and you want to get those angles a bit straighter through your arms. But yeah, I'm pretty neutral there, nothing too crazy. So it's one of those ones of just experimenting a little bit with your size and working out a nice comfortable window. I've seen some bad handlebar setups when I'm out on rides with ATB, and I honestly feel like pulling the guys up and telling them what they're doing wrong. Just some of the handlebar raises and that, like I know tall guys think they should have them up, but you go messing up the whole geometry of the bike. Just running them up tall, if your leverage is up here and you're coming into a turn, it's just going to encourage the bike to want to front flip. So keep them sensible, and the same with handlebar position. The further you go forward, it's just going to make it awkward and want to flip over in the turns, and that's why I recommend to keep it nice and neutral and don't go anything crazy. Suspension for trail riding is very important. Most of the new bikes these days come with suspension set up pretty good for trail riding. The first spot I like to start is just with sag. I go by the manual for guidelines. The Yamaha for me here today on the WR450, I've got about 110mm sag. It's just a nice happy medium like I try and have set up for this trail riding. From there I move on to the suspension clickers. Like I was saying, they all come out pretty good, they're pretty close, but if you read the manual and get in touch with your local suspension guy, you can get some setup tips and ideas. I chase a lot of comfort in this kind of stuff. I don't like to get beaten up or do it hard when I'm trail riding. I like to enjoy my day, so I've softened this off just a little bit on the compression on both the low and high. The same on the front fork, I've softened it off as well, 2 clicks, just so I can get a nice comfortable ride on all the little stuff and be confident to go where I want to go on the trails. A lot of the enduro bikes these days are set up for riders around a similar weight to me, like I'm around the 85 kilo mark, so I don't generally need to touch the fork springs or shock springs, but realistically, if you're above the 90 kilo mark, I'd start looking at going up spring rates. And the same thing, if you're down below 70, then you can look at going to a lighter spring, just to bring you back in that window with the sag and comfort when you're out trail riding. My aim when trail riding with the suspension, I chase a nice soft feel over all the little stuff, just for comfort and not wearing out the old bones. But then I do like it to get progressively firmer. A lot of bad habits I see people do is they think they've got a bit of speed and that, so they just go harder and harder and harder. It's not enjoyable when it's like that. I think if you can come up with a nice, supple, soft feeling initially, and then you do still have a fork and shock that can handle a decent hit, I think you have an enjoyable day. Most new bikes these days have some great options to change your power via some maps, like the Yamaha has the power map switch here. A lot of other enduro bikes too, but the great thing about the WR450 is it's got a power up tuner I can get in my phone, which I'm going to do in a minute, and pretty much customize it to what I'm riding today. The power I chase when I'm trail riding, it comes down to what terrain I'm riding. I look at it, and basically today we've got a fair old mix of, it's a little bit dry today, a little bit dusty and slippery, so I recommend this for most people when trail riding. I go for a nice, smooth, linear power delivery off the bottom. I don't want it to be aggressive, I want it to be nice and easy to roll on the throttle, and then I just slowly let it build it, power and get stronger as it goes on. That works in most conditions. If I was trail riding in deep sand, I go a bit more aggressive on the power. I can go a bit towards what a motocross bike would feel like, and then vice versa. If I'm down in extreme snotty clay and that, I'll mellow this down as much as I possibly can and give myself as little power as possible. Today we're using the Yamaha power tuning app for the WR450. So we've just got it hooked up, and I'm going to go into the mapping. I've done a little bit of testing and come up with a few different maps. I've got, I worked with Fuel Talk, and I've got a mellow, aggressive and enduro map. It's reasonably dry and slippery here today, so I've loaded the mellow map in, and you can see these are all the different numbers and everything I've done. In basic terms, I've richened it up a little bit, and then on the ignition, I've retarded a few of the boxes just to mellow out the power and give me a nice smooth power delivery. This bike's got tons of power, so I'm more than happy to sacrifice a little bit off the bottom to give me a bit more traction and a bit more of an enjoyable ride. If you're running a bike with a carburetor, you still have a few choices there with the jetting to do a similar thing to which I just did with the mapping. I'd start with the main jet. Obviously going leaner is going to give you a bit snappier, aggressive power. I tend to go a little bit richer just for the smoother power. Same thing with your needle. it's along the same lines as the main jet and works more in the middle of the bike's power. Same thing there, just go a little bit richer, is that nice, broader, smoother power. And you can work your way down to the pilot jet, which affects more of your initial power off the bottom. Going leaner, same thing, you're going to get a bit snappier power off the bottom. I like it a bit richer, so it's that smooth initial power when I roll on. And then once you start really getting into the fine tuning, you've got your air screw, and that's down the same line too, and it also affects with starting and things like that. So I recommend playing around with your jetting a little bit. If you don't really know, get some tips off some guys that do know, because you don't really want to go leaning your bike out and seizing it up if you don't know, but you do get a lot of benefits from working out the difference between richer and leaner settings for how you like the power. And finally guys, protection for trail riding is also really important, because unlike factory guys, you're paying for your parts when you break them. Most bikes these days come with a decent plastic skid plate, but for trail riding I like to go to a bit more sturdy setup like this. It just gives your frame and your lower cases a bit more protection, and on this one you can see you got some decent crash or log protection to the water pump against anything. It's just nice and sturdy, and you can get away with being a bit more crazy and a bit more adventurous on the trails with rocks and everything. This alloy one, it does add a little bit of weight and it does resonate a little bit of noise, but I'll take that every day with the protection, because like when I'm trail riding, I'm not worried about a couple of extra grams. It's just I'm happy being able to smash through the bush and know I'm going to get through the day without a DNF. Another important protection piece is hand and lever protection. I've gone for a I-class, a bit more of a basic setup here. They're open-ended style ones, just mainly for hand protection. It saves my fingers and that from getting, or hopefully not broken, from sticks, and the same thing from bushes and trees and that, grabbing hold of my levers. This is a style I've always gone with. You can go a bit more extreme for the wraparound ones that mount on the end of the handlebars. They're good for really extreme style conditions where you're dropping a bike a lot, just to save the levers a little bit more. But these do the job for me. And even in cold weather, just this little bit of protection just keeps my hands a little bit warmer. Another piece of protection that I like, it isn't 100% necessary, but I always find it good, is the disc guard here. I find, and I also see a lot of riders, you're just sliding around and getting through some rocky gorges and that, you're nothing worse than bending a rear disc and all day having your brake pedal disappearing on you. So yeah, it's just a good one to go with. It just stops rocks and impacts, and even dragging through ruts, it's just that little bit more protection.